When Clara stepped off the rattling westbound train, veil trembling in the desert wind, she realized too late she had chosen the wrong station. No eager husband to be waited with flowers, only a wary Apache warrior watching her from the shadows. And at his side, a wide-eyed little girl tugged his hand and whispered, "Papa." Heaven finally answered us. The train screeched to a halt with a shrill whistle, iron wheels shrieking against the tracks as a cloud of steam swallowed the platform. Clara tightened her grip on the worn leather satchel in her lap, heart drumming like the pistons that had carried her westward. This was supposed to be the beginning of her new life, the final stop that would deliver her from loneliness, from destitution, from the string of half-promises back east. She had answered an advertisement in a Missouri Gazette, bold as a declaration. God-fearing man, rancher in Arizona Territory, seeks virtuous woman for marriage. A good home and honest companionship assured Dot, she had written back. Desperate yet cautious, and after months of letters had agreed. It was not love, not yet, but it was escape. It was survival. And in time, perhaps, it might be comfort. Clara smoothed the skirt of her traveling dress and rose when the conductor called the station's name. The sign outside was weathered, paint blistered from the desert sun, the letters half faded but still legible. She told herself this was it. This was where her husband-to-be would be waiting. She stepped down onto the dusty boards of the platform, blinking as the glare of the Arizona sun pierced through the veil on her bonnet. The platform was nearly empty. A few men in wide-brimmed hats hauled freight from the baggage car. A pair of women bustled off with baskets of laundry. Beyond them stretched endless desert, red earth broken by towering mesas and stands of mesquite. The heat pressed against her like a physical weight. Her pulse quickened. She searched the platform for a familiar figure. Though she had only his letters and the single faded daguerreotype he'd sent her, a tall man in a clean shirt, unsmiling, one hand resting on a coiled lasso. No such man appeared. Minutes passed. The train hissed, groaned, and pulled away, leaving only silence in its wake. Clara's throat tightened. She was alone. She tried to reason it out. Perhaps he was delayed. Perhaps he had gone to fetch a wagon and would return shortly. Perhaps she should wait. Yet unease wormed its way through her. She glanced at the station clerk behind the ticket window, who paid her no mind. Then back toward the road leading away from town. It was then she noticed him. A man stood apart from the station, on the edge of the platform where dust met scrub. His hair was long, black as raven feathers, tied back with a strip of leather. His features were sharp, proud, eyes dark and steady as they studied her. His clothes were simple buckskin leggings, a faded calico shirt, and at his side clung a small girl, no more than 6 or 7. The child's dress was worn but clean, her braids neat. She stared at Clara with open wonder, while her father's gaze carried something harder. Guarded but not unkind. Clara felt heat climb into her cheeks. She dropped her eyes, unsure if she ought to nod, to speak, or to retreat back into the safety of the station's shade. But the girl tugged at the man's hand and whispered something. Clara couldn't hear, but she saw his expression shift, his jaw easing, his shoulders lowering. Then the child looked straight at Clara, her voice carrying across the still platform with disarming clarity. "Papa," she said. Heaven finally answered us. The word struck Clara like a bell. Her breath caught, and for a moment the world tilted. She had expected a rancher with a waiting wagon, expected her new life to begin with handshakes and awkward courtesies. Instead, she stood before a stranger, an Apache warrior whose daughter had mistaken her for something else entirely. Clara clutched her satchel, torn between fear and the flicker of something she could not name. Fate had carried her west, but had it carried her to the wrong man? Or had it carried her exactly where she was meant to be? Clara's fingers curled tighter around her satchel strap, leather biting into her palm. The desert wind stirred the veil across her face, carrying with it the smell of dust and horses. She told herself to look away, to walk inside the station and wait for the man she had promised to marry. But the child's voice lingered, sweet and haunting. "Papa." "Heaven finally answered us." The Apache man stepped forward, slow and deliberate, as though approaching a startled deer. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his shadow stretching long across the sun-baked boards. The girl clung to his side, eyes bright, her smile wide enough to chase away Clara's fear almost. "You are lost," the man said in English touched by an accent firm. Clipped, yet careful. Clara swallowed, throat dry. I don't think so. This is the station. He was supposed to meet me here." The man studied her, his gaze sweeping over the bonnet, the satchel, the traveling dress more suited to eastern streets than desert trails. His eyes lingered a heartbeat longer, as if searching for truth in her. "No one waits for you here," he said. Not unkind, not dismissive, merely certain. The girl tugged at his hand and whispered again, softer this time, but Clara caught enough. "Papa," she came. "Just like you prayed." Clara blinked. "Prayed? For her?" Heat rose in her chest, a mingling of confusion and something dangerously close to hope. "I think you're mistaken," she said gently, crouching a little so she might meet the child's gaze. The girl's eyes, dark and luminous, brimmed with a trust that struck Clara's heart. "I'm waiting for someone." "Someone else," the Apache's brow furrowed. "A husband?" Clara straightened, startled. "Yes, he was supposed to meet me." The man's expression did not soften, yet a muscle worked in his jaw as if the word carried weight. He glanced toward the road, then back at her. "No white man waits for you here." "This place?" He lifted a hand toward the small town huddled in the distance, a handful of buildings bleached by the sun. "Few men come. Fewer stay." Clara's stomach knotted. Had she gotten the wrong stop? Had her intended written poorly, or had she misunderstood? Panic fluttered at the edges of her composure. She could not afford mistakes. She had spent everything, money, courage, hope, to come this far. The girl tugged again, more insistent. "Papa, don't you see? She's the one. She help us." Clara's heart squeezed. She had not expected such boldness from a child, nor such certainty. "Help you?" she asked softly. The Apache warrior's eyes met hers, steady as stone. For a moment she thought he would rebuke the child, send her away, but instead he stood silent, letting the weight of the words hang between them. Finally, he spoke. "My daughter believes the Great Spirit answered her prayer. She asks for a mother." The air seemed to crackle around Clara as though the sun itself had leaned closer. She clutched her satchel tighter, not sure whether to laugh, cry, or flee. A mother? This stranger's child believed she had been sent by heaven? "I'm not," Clara faltered. "I didn't come for that." The girl's lip trembled, but the father's hand rested gently on her shoulder, steadying her. His eyes never left Clara's face. "And yet you came." Silence pressed in, broken only by the distant caw of a crow and the whisper of dry grass in the wind. Clara's pulse thundered. Every sensible part of her screamed to walk away, to wait for the man who had promised her safety, a home, a future. Yet deep within, something else stirred, something that listened not to reason but to longing. She searched the man's face. His features were weathered by sun and hardship, his expression guarded but not cruel. And the girl's eyes were pools of unshaken faith. Clara could not bear to dash that faith, even if it was misplaced. "I should find the clerk," Clara said finally, her voice tight. "There must be some mistake." The man inclined his head, a gesture neither agreement nor refusal. "Mistake or not," he said quietly, "the desert brings who it brings." Clara turned, heart hammering. But even as she walked toward the shade of the station, she felt their eyes on her, the child's brimming with hope. The father shadowed by something unspoken. And for the first time since she boarded the train, Clara wondered if the wrong station might not be so wrong after all. Clara paced the splintered boards of the station platform, her satchel heavy in her grip, though it held little more than a Bible, 2 dresses, and a bundle of letters tied with twine. The clerk behind the window gave her no more attention than he might a stray cat. She asked once, twice, if a man by the name of Andrew Mallory, her Andrew, had inquired after her, or left a note or sent word of delay. The clerk shrugged, muttered something about the mail wagon running late, and bent back over his ledger. Clara's chest hollowed with dread. She pressed the daguerreotype from her pocket, the faded likeness of Andrew staring back with stiff formality. Had she been a fool to trust his letters? What if he had never intended to meet her? What if she had been nothing but a pastime to him, a cruel jest spun into ink? The station emptied as the day stretched long. A few wagons rattled past, bound for ranches she did not know. The heat pressed down until the boards burned her boots. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, but pride held her still. She would not cry. Not yet. It was near sunset when a shadow stretched across her shoes. She startled and looked up. The Apache warrior stood there again, the child tucked close to his side. The man's presence was quiet but commanding, as though the very land bent to his stride. He said nothing at first, only offered her a strip of dried meat wrapped in cloth. Clara hesitated, torn between suspicion and hunger. Her upbringing screamed caution, yet the gnawing in her belly won. She took the offering with trembling hands. "Thank you," she murmured. The man nodded once, approval glinting faint in his eyes. The girl beamed, as if Clara's acceptance meant something larger than a mere meal. "You have no one here," the man said at last. It was not a question. Clara drew herself upright, summoning what dignity she could. "My husband-to-be was supposed to meet me. I'm sure he's only delayed." The man studied her long enough that the truth seemed to wither under his gaze. A man who leaves his woman waiting in the sun is not a man worth waiting for. The bluntness cut deep. Clara bristled, though not at him, at the echo of her own gnawing fear. "You don't know him," she said stiffly. The girl piped up, her voice soft but certain. "Maybe he's gone. Maybe God sent you to us instead." Clara's throat closed. How could a child so small speak words that struck so near the bone? She forced a smile, brittle and thin. "Sweetheart, I think God may have sent me to the wrong station, is all." The girl frowned, but her father's hand settled gently on her braid, soothing her disappointment. His gaze returned to Clara, unreadable, yet carrying the weight of unspoken invitation. "I have fire," he said. "Food, water, safer than here." The offer stunned her. She searched his face, seeking malice, but found only quiet certainty. Still, fear clawed at her ribs. To go with him would be reckless, foolish even. Yet to remain at the station with night descending and no groom in sight seemed just as dangerous. The clerk bolted the window, locking the office tight. The platform emptied. The desert wind carried the cry of a coyote. Clara's resolve faltered. She thought of the long, cold night stretching ahead, of wolves and worse. She hugged her satchel to her chest and whispered a prayer. "Lord, guide me." When she lifted her eyes, the warrior and his child were already walking toward the desert road, their silhouettes gilded by the sinking sun. The girl glanced back, her small hand waving with unspoken plea. Clara stood frozen, heart pounding. This was not the life she had agreed to when she left Missouri. Yet every instinct told her the man's words were true. Andrew was not coming. The desert had brought her here, and perhaps the desert demanded a different path. With trembling breath, she stepped from the platform. Her boots sank into red dust as she followed the warrior and his daughter into the gathering dusk. The road bled into wilderness as Clara followed the Apache, warrior and his daughter. Behind her, the station shrank into nothing more than a box of wood swallowed by the desert. Ahead stretched a horizon painted in fire, mesas glowing red in the fading light. Each step away from the platform carried her further from the life she had planned, yet oddly closer to something she could not yet name. The warrior moved with quiet confidence, his stride measured, his presence like a compass fixed on true north. The girl skipped at his side, her braids swinging, dust clinging to her faded dress. Every so often she glanced back to be sure Clara still followed, as though afraid the strange woman might vanish like smoke if not watched closely. They walked until stars pricked the velvet sky. Clara's skirt snagged on mesquite branches and her boots filled with grit. Just as her legs began to falter, the warrior lifted a hand. Here, the camp nestled in a fold of the land where cottonwoods leaned over a narrow stream. A small fire crackled within a ring of stones, its light casting a warm glow against the darkness. A hide shelter stood near the water, simple yet sturdy. Clara blinked, taking it in the quiet order of a life shaped not by parlors and pews, but by necessity and earth. The girl darted forward, pulling out a small bundle from within the shelter. She spread it on the ground with great ceremony, patting it flat as if to say, "Here, sit here, this is yours." Clara hesitated, then lowered herself onto the blanket. The ground was hard, the air cool, yet there was a strange comfort in the crackle of the fire and the whisper of water nearby. Warrior set about his tasks without fuss. He fetched a clay pot, filled it at the stream, and set it over the flames. Soon the scent of boiling maize drifted upward, mingled with the aroma of dried herbs. Clara's stomach tightened with hunger, yet her pride pricked. She had not intended to depend on a stranger, least of all one whose life was so far from her. Owned out the girl broke the silence first. "My name is Atza," she said, chest puffed with importance. "It means eagle," Clara smiled despite herself. "Eagle suits you." She glanced at the man, uncertain if he would introduce himself. He stirred the pot, his expression unreadable. At last he said, "Taza." The name settled in Clara's mind, firm and resonant. "I'm Clara," she offered, her voice softer than she intended. Atza scooted closer, resting her chin on her knees. "Clara," she repeated, testing the sound as if it were a secret word. Then, with all the boldness of youth, she asked, "Will you be my mama?" Clara's breath caught. She looked to Taza, expecting him to hush the child, but he only stirred the pot, jaw tightening ever so slightly. He neither encouraged nor forbade the words. "Oh, sweetheart." Clara's voice wavered. "I'm not—" She stopped herself. To crush the child's hope seemed cruel. Yet to encourage, it was a lie she dared not tell. "I don't know what I will be," she finished softly. Atza seemed satisfied enough. She scooted closer still, slipping her small hand into Clara's. The warmth of the child's trust disarmed her. Clara's chest ached with something long buried, the echo of her own loss, of the brother's children she had once tended back in Missouri before fever stole them away. She had sworn never to open her heart so wide again, lest it break in two. The pot hissed. Taza ladled a portion into a wooden bowl and handed it to Clara without ceremony. She accepted it, fingers brushing his. His touch was firm, calloused, steady. He returned to his seat without a word. Clara lifted the food to her lips. It was plain, earthy, yet more satisfying than anything she had eaten since leaving the East. She murmured thanks, unsure if it was to Taza, to God, or to both. The fire crackled low, shadows dancing across their faces. Clara studied the man across from her, the strength in his shoulders, the quiet patience in his movements. Atza leaned against her side, already half-dash asleep. And for the first time since stepping off the train, Clara felt something other than fear. She felt belonging. Fragile, uncertain, but real. Clara woke to the sound of birdsong and the shimmer of light filtering through cottonwood leaves. For a moment, she forgot where she was, forgot the desert, the train, the absent groom. A small weight pressed against her side. She turned and found Atsa curled against her, one tiny hand fisted in Clara's sleeve as though afraid she might vanish in the night. The tenderness of the gesture ached in Clara's chest. She lay still, letting the girl sleep, listening to the rustle of water over stone and the steady rhythm of Taza's movements nearby. He was already awake, crouched by the stream, sharpening a blade with slow, precise strokes. The morning light gilded his profile in bronze, every motion purposeful, as if wasted energy were a sign against the earth itself. Clara closed her eyes again, and Andrew's face rose in her mind, the stiff daguerreotype, the neat handwriting of his letters. Promises of a home, of respectability, of shared prayers. Promises she had clutched like a lifeline. Had she been a fool to believe them? Had she chased a mirage all the way to Arizona, only to discover she was nothing but a discarded dream? She sat up, gently disentangling herself from Atsa. The girl stirred, blinked sleepily, then smiled with the kind of faith that asked for nothing and yet demanded everything. Clara's throat tightened. "You'll stay, won't you?" Atsa asked, her voice hushed as though the question itself were fragile. Clara smoothed the girl's braid. "I can't promise that, darling. I don't even know what I'm meant to do." Atsa frowned, but only for a heartbeat before scampering toward the stream to splash her face. Children's hearts mended quickly. Adults less so. Taza set the blade aside and looked at Clara. His gaze was steady, probing without intrusion. "Your man," he said at last. "Still you wait for him?" Clara bristled at the quiet challenge in his tone. "He wrote to me. He asked me to come. I gave him my word." "A word is strong," Taza agreed. "But stronger still is truth. If a man breaks his word, you owe him nothing." Clara hugged her satchel closer, though it held nothing but proof of those broken promises. "You speak as if you know him." "I know men," Taza said simply. "And I know when a woman is left standing alone." The bluntness cut deep. Clara turned away, blinking back the sting in her eyes. He could not understand. He was not raised to value the sanctity of marriage, the safety it offered a woman. He did not know the fear that clung to her, fear of being nothing, of having no place, of becoming one more forgotten face among the countless widows and spinsters left behind. Yet when she looked at Atsa, her heart wavered. The girl's laughter as she splashed at the stream rang like church bells, bright and unburdened. Clara felt the pull of it, the way one feels the tug of sunlight after too long in shadow. Taza handed her a gourd of water. Their fingers brushed. His touch was steady, grounding, as though he offered more than just drink, offered a place in the quiet rhythm of his world. Clara drank, then lowered the gourd. "I gave my word," she whispered again, but it sounded feebler this time, as though she tried to convince herself more than him. Taza studied her a long moment. Then, with a slow nod, he said, "Then we will take you back." To the station. To wait. The thought struck her like a stone. To return meant facing emptiness again, the barren platform, the indifferent clerk, the possibility that Andrew would never come. Yet to stay meant surrendering to the pull she already felt, the warmth of Atsa's hand in hers, the quiet strength of Taza's presence, the strange sense that perhaps she was not lost, but found. She turned toward the fire where the pot simmered once more, and whispered a prayer she was not sure God would answer. "Show me which promise I am bound to keep." The desert afternoon shimmered under the merciless sun, and Clara sat on a flat rock beside the stream, weaving a small basket of reeds. Her fingers moved automatically, yet her mind was elsewhere, tangled in a storm of doubt and longing. Atsa ran nearby, chasing lizards and laughter alike, and Taza worked silently. repairing a section of the hide shelter with patient precision. It had been a week since she had arrived, a week that felt both fleeting and endless. Each day brought small rhythms, the crackle of the fire, the hiss of boiling water, the simple trust of Atsa's hand in hers, but Clara could not fully banish Andrew from her thoughts. She had promised him. She had counted on him. Every step she had taken westward had been measured against his letters, his words, the life he had painted for her in careful ink. Then, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in molten gold, a rider appeared on the horizon, stirring the dust in a curling ribbon behind him. Taza stood immediately, hand resting on the hilt of his knife, eyes narrowing against the glare. Clara's heart thumped, a strange mixture of fear and anticipation. The rider dismounted and handed her a folded letter, its seal cracked and edges worn from travel. Clara's hands trembled as she broke the seal, unfolded the paper, and read the familiar, angular script. Clara, I write to you with apologies. Circumstances beyond my control have delayed me. I intend to meet you at the station at first light. Her heart faltered. Relief, hope, and disbelief tangled in a dizzying knot. Andrew was coming. He had not forgotten her. He had not changed his mind. The life she had been promised still awaited, just a day's journey away. Atsa's small voice broke the spell. "Mama?" she said softly, though she did not quite ask a question. Her eyes were wide, searching Clara's face. Clara looked at Taza, whose expression was unreadable, yet his stance seemed different. He did not move to take the letter, did not snatch it from her hands. He merely watched, steady as ever, letting her wrestle with the impossible. Clara's chest ached. She could feel the tug of duty, the pull of her promise to Andrew, the years of longing that had led her across mountains and plains. Yet another force pressed equally hard, the warmth of this small family, the strength in Taza's quiet presence, the unspoken trust Atsa had already placed in her. She folded the letter slowly, as if the act could contain her tumultuous thoughts. Returning to the station meant leaving behind the laughter of Atsa, the steady guidance of Taza, the life she had begun to see in glimpses each day. To stay meant risking scandal, social censure, and the uncertain judgment of a world she barely knew, a world that still demanded her obedience to a man who had only existed in letters. Taza spoke quietly, almost as if speaking to himself. The desert does not wait. It offers its gifts once. Then they are gone. Clara's fingers tightened around the letter. Atsa leaned against her side, small and trusting, her wide eyes reflecting the fading light. Clara's heart wrenched, torn between the man she had promised to meet and the life already unfolding in front of her. For a long moment, the desert held its breath, the only sound the whisper of wind over sand and stream. Then Clara made her choice. She folded the letter carefully, slipping it into her satchel, and stood. She turned to Taza and Atsa, her voice trembling but resolute. I cannot go back," she said. "Not now. Not ever." Atsa clapped her small hands, a sound of pure delight, and ran into her arms. Taza's expression softened imperceptibly, and he nodded once, silently acknowledging the bond forming between them. The sun sank behind the mesas, leaving a glow that bathed the desert in gold. Clara watched the horizon, no longer wondering what she might have missed, but certain of what she had found: a family waiting not in letters or promises, but in the desert itself. The morning sun spilled across the desert like molten gold, painting the mesas in hues of fire and shadow. Clara stirred in the hide shelter, waking not to fear or uncertainty, but to the gentle rhythm of life around her. Atsa was already awake, humming softly as she gathered kindling for the fire, and Taza moved with quiet purpose, tending to the stream and the small garden of desert herbs he had cultivated. Clara rose, stretching muscles stiff from travel and the strange weight of choice. She no longer carried the tension of the past, no longer felt the pull of Andrew's absent promise. The letter remained in her satchel, folded and untouched, a relic of the life she had left behind. She had chosen this place, these people, this strange and beautiful desert home. The first challenge came not from the land, but from within herself. Every day she wrestled with habits and expectations she had carried from Missouri. Curtsies and polite restraint, fear of dirt, reluctance to lift her hands to hard work. But Taza watched her quietly, never mocking, never urging, only guiding by example. Slowly, Clara learned the rhythm of the camp, how to draw water from the stream without spilling, how to stoke the fire just so, how to mend clothes and prepare food that could sustain them all through the day. Atza proved to be her most patient teacher. Each morning, the child insisted on showing Clara how to catch lizards, weave baskets, and identify edible plants. Her laughter was infectious, her joy uncontainable, and Clara found herself laughing too, forgetting the careful composure she had carried across the plains. Yet the hardest part was learning to belong, not merely to survive, but to be accepted as part of the family. Taza's trust was steady but guarded. He allowed her a place beside him, yet tested her resolve in small, silent ways. He watched her reaction when the fire flared too high, when the basket wove unevenly, when she faltered in chores that demanded both strength and patience. Each success won him a quiet nod, each failure a steadying gaze. Slowly, Clara realized that belonging was earned not through words, but through presence, persistence, and heart. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mesas and the sky ignited in shades of pink and orange, Taza approached her while she kneaded dough for flatbread. "You are learning well," he said, his voice calm but carrying weight. "The desert accepts those who work with it, who respect it." "You have done this," Clara blinked, unsure if he meant the bread or her. But the nod in his eyes held more than acknowledgement. It held acceptance. And for the first time, she felt that she could truly call this place home. Atza clambered into her lap, chattering about lizards, weaving, and the story of the eagle she had dreamed about the night before. Clara listened, laughing, stroking the child's hair. She felt warmth in a way she had never known, the quiet, unwavering trust of the girl, the steady strength of the man, and the pulse of the land itself, alive and constant beneath her fingers' dot as night fell. The camp settled into its rhythms. The fire crackled, stars prickling the velvet sky. Clara looked around at the small circle of family she had chosen, or perhaps the desert had chosen for her. She no longer thought of Andrew, nor of the station she had left behind. Her past was a story she carried, but it no longer defined her. The hardest part of embracing this new life had been surrendering control, letting go of expectation, and trusting the unseen currents that had brought her here. And in that surrender, she had found joy, purpose, and belonging. Taza, sitting across from her, caught her gaze. There was no need for words. In the silent understanding between them, Clara felt the promise of a future one not dictated by letters or obligations, but by choice, loyalty, and the quiet pulse of life in the desert. Atza leaned against her, eyelids heavy with sleep. Clara kissed the top of her head, whispering softly, "I'm here, always." And for the first time, the desert felt like home, not a foreign, empty place, but a world alive with trust, love, and possibility. Weeks passed, and the desert settled into its rhythm, steady as the heartbeat of the land itself. Clara awoke each morning to the soft rustle of cottonwood leaves, the warm breath of Atza pressed against her side, and the steady presence of Taza moving silently through their small camp. The days were filled with simple labors, gathering water, tending herbs, mending clothes, cooking meals over the fire, but within them lay a profound sense of purpose Clara had never known. News of Andrew never arrived again. The letters ceased, The trains rolled past without bearing his promise, and the station faded into memory. Slowly, Clara let go of the life she had once envisioned, the neatly ordered home, the polite conversation over polished floors, the security of a man who had only existed in ink and hope. In its place grew something wild, raw, and deeply real, a life shaped by courage, by trust, and by the bond she shared with Taza and Atza. The day had been long, the sun a relentless overseer of labor and patience. Clara and Taza returned from gathering firewood, their arms heavy with bundles. Atza ran ahead, laughing, her small shadow flickering against the red earth. She had discovered a patch of desert lily and insisted on bringing them back for Clara, a bright cluster of color to adorn the simple shelter. Clara knelt, brushing the petals lightly against her cheek. "Thank you, little eagle," she said. Atza beamed, proud that her offering was accepted, and Clara felt her chest swell with a tenderness so strong it nearly hurt Datiezia watch them from a short distance, leaning against a mesquite tree. He did not speak. He did not need to. His presence alone was assurance. Clara rose and approached him, extending her hand, and for the first time, the gesture felt natural, not hesitant. "You made this place home," he said quietly, voice carrying over the still air. "Not just the land, but us." Clara's heart fluttered. She realized that she no longer measured her worth by promises made elsewhere, by the uncertain gaze of a distant groom, or by the life she thought she should live. She measured it by the hand she held, the laughter she heard, the trust she nurtured. And in that measure she was whole. Atza scampered over, looping her arms around both Clara and Taza. The three formed an unspoken circle of family, their bonds stitched together by daily trials, laughter, shared meals, and quiet understanding. Clara hugged them tightly, feeling the pulse of life in their unity, a warmth that had nothing to do with comfort or routine and everything to do with belonging. Night fell. The fire crackled, sending sparks into the darkened sky. Clara looked up at the stars, vast and endless, and for the first time, she understood the quiet promise Taza had spoken of when she first arrived. The desert offers its gifts once, and they are rare and precious. She had been given more than survival. She had been given a family, a home, and the chance to shape her own life, unbound by distant expectations. "Papa," Atza whispered sleepily, leaning against Taza. "Clara is ours, isn't she?" Taza's hand rested lightly on her head. "Yes," he said, a small, almost imperceptible smile softening his features. "She is ours." Clara pressed a kiss to the child's forehead, her own eyes glistening with unspent tears. "Yes, little eagle," she whispered. "We're a family," and for the first time in years, Clara felt completely at peace. The desert stretched endlessly around them, wild and untamed, yet it felt safe, nurturing, and alive. The trio man, woman, child sat by the fire, shadows dancing across their faces, bound by choice and trust, by laughter and loyalty, by the quiet miracles of survival and love. The wrong station had delivered her to the right place. The life she had dreamed of was gone, replaced by something richer, more resilient, and infinitely more real. Clara's past existed only in memory, a gentle echo. Her present and her future belonged to the desert, to Taza, and to Atza. And in that vast, sun-baked land, they found their heaven together, not in letters or promises, but in the daily, unbroken miracle of family.